thank you all very much for coming out tonight. We really appreciate it. I'm Dave Williams. I'm a member of the Friends of the Parker River Wildlife National Refuge. We're an all-volunteer organization that supports the refuge by assisting them, hosting programs like this, walks, educational programs out on the refuge, assisting with some small maintenance projects. We've been working on replacing those old wooden railings on parking lots 1 and through with the Trex Dex railings, so you're not going to pick up as many splinters anymore. So, love to have you take a look at our brochure and consider joining us. We're really fortunate tonight. We've got 2 great guys, 2 great fishermen. The Plum Island Surfcasters was founded in 1957. They are a growing club of recreational fishermen who are involved in surf, boat, kayak, and fly fishing with interest in other related areas such as beach access, conservation, and fishery management. The club holds year-round monthly meetings for sharing techniques, experiences, discussing legislation, addressing club issues, and showcasing popular speakers. Clayton Frattles is from Plastown, New Hampshire, and has fished Plum Island since he was a kid, fishing for all types of fish, from freshwater to saltwater. He has been a member of the Plum Island Surfcasters for over 10 years and has been running their juniors program for over 5 years. Last year, Clayton won the Plum Island year-long tournament for the club with a 38-pound striped bass. James Jukes is from Woburn and has been fishing from the age of 10. He has been a Plum Island Surfcaster Club member for over 5 years and spends 80% of his saltwater fishing time on Plum Island. In 2016, he took top honors in the club surf caught tournament and last season won the surf division in the Why Not Fishing Fall Classic. So without further, I'd like to introduce both of these gentlemen. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm James. He's Clayton. Clay. So what we're going to do tonight is we'll go over and make things a lot real simple for you. How many have surf fished? Oh, good. Majority of you. How many of you catch fish? There you go. You guys are making our jobs easy already, right?
So what we'll do tonight, we'll just go over all the basics. We don't have a strict agenda. We can jump around. We can answer questions as we go. And again, more basics. We'll start with rods and reels, and we'll take it all the way to plugs, and we'll show you how we fish and
basically how we end up with fish like this. And this is the norm.
In all the slides that you show, I think maybe all but two are all Plum Island fish. All 4 of these are Plum Island from the surf.
Yeah, we don't move off the island all that much. We do take a couple trips down to Cuttyhunk Island. I don't know if anybody's familiar with that. And down to Block Island, down the Cape. 80% of my time, Clay's time, is spent on the island, so that's our home.
All right. So the first thing you'll need is a rod. Any old rod will do, but the best way to describe fishing rods is they're like golf clubs. You have a driver, you have a pitching wedge, you have a short iron, a long iron. It's pretty much the same as rods. All the rods will come with like a lure size that they're capable of handling, a line size.
The type of action on the rod.
So when you're figuring out which rod to buy, you want to try to figure out what type of fishing you're going to do. If you're going to fish, bait from the surf and stick your rod in a sand spike that you're going to throw some bait, that tends to be a little heavier. So you go with a heavier rod that handles, like this one, 2 to 4 ounces. If you're going to, you got a bad shoulder, so you want a lighter rod, and you're going to walk up and down the beach and throw smaller lures, you would obviously,
Use a lighter rod
a rod pull in.
that's 3/4 to 3, or, so you're not gonna be using a 10-foot rod, you'll be using a smaller rod.
So this is just like the chart from a popular company, St. Croix. Very good surf rod, but they go all the way from 8.6 to 10.6, and then you have, you know, all your different lure weights. Again, that's what you would want to figure out before you buy the rod, what type.
And most of this stuff too is everybody gets a lot hung up with line weight, fast action, slow action, 1/2 to 2 ounce, 1/2 to 3 ounce, 1 to 6, 2 to 6. So it all ends up being a real personal preference. So I know Ron up here, he's going to be casting a lot of smaller topwater plugs. So maybe his 9.6, 1/2 to 2 works for him. Whereas Scott here, he might be throwing some big heavy stuff, so he's going to be working more towards like a 10.6. Doesn't have it on it, but like a 2 to 6 ounce rod.
My heavy rod's 2 to 8.
2 to 8. So, or somebody else might be throwing some soft plastics, or like Clay said, you're gonna be throwing some bait. The best thing to do is go talk to a tackle shop. All the ones in the area are more than happy to help you figure out what works for you. Surfland, Crossroads, Tomo's Tackle in Salem, they're not just gonna sell you a rod and try and get you to spend all your money. So if you keep it with the mom and pop shops, they're gonna sell you because they want you coming back. That's not to say if you don't go to Bass Pro Shops and you find a rod there that you're gonna give it a shot, you know, you're gonna spend 60, 80 bucks on it, fine. You might be replacing that shortly, or, like I said, stop into Surfland or some of these other shops and ask them about your particular instances that you're gonna be fishing. Because the way I fish, I'm out on the water probably 4 or 5 nights a week. So all my stuff is pretty high-end stuff to take the abuse. Whereas somebody who's gonna fish a day or two on the weekend, 5, 6 times a year, you don't need to be going to spend all kinds of money. You can still have a lot of fun and get some low-end stuff. Any questions on anything in particular with rods?
The handles all say 6.
Go back.
Yeah, this is just I just grabbed it off the internet, it's just to show you the different sizes and actions in the.
Yeah, and this is basically a standard St. Croix model, so they're gonna have all the same size handle.
Okay.
I just use
They're
that
wrapped.
as a template to.
And this is pretty much their real seat. So their real seat is kind of a real generic
Yeah,
one.
different companies will have just different places where this is your real seat. So like this, a number 6 handle would be something like this, or, you know, just different handle.
I got a question.
Sure.
All these rods have like the, you know, the range of weight that the lure they can throw, they're designed
Yes.
to throw. Where do they throw, like often, like in that range?
It all depends. I have, this one here is a 2 to 6 ounce rod. My happy spot with this particular rod I have is right around the 2 1/4, 2 1/2 ounce, right? But I've thrown lures up to 5 ounces with it.
Usually when they have these, you want to go just a little bit below it. You know, like this rod has that up to a 2 ounce.
Yeah.
You really don't want to max that out because now you're maxing out that rod when you throw
Yeah.
it.
So for example, this
Rule
one's,
of thumb is it's usually just a little bit below. So like this one says 1/2, so it's probably down to like 3/8 to 1.5 ounces or something like that.
This one's a 2 to 6, and I comfortably throw a 1 ounce pencil popper with it. But I've also thrown up to a 5 ounce jig. Even though it says 6, it's a little scary throwing 5 ounces.
I've done it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You can do
every
it.
rod will have its sweet spot to say, you know, like James said, like that rod throws a 1 ounce really good.
Yeah, and this one here is a 2 to 5. This is a Century, another high-end rod. This one here will comfortably throw 4 ounces all night long, and you'll barely get tired. So again, it's all what you would particularly be doing with it. That's why I say is to figure out what you do for surf casting, because it's certainly not going to be what I do, or what Angela does, or Steve does, things like that. So, because everybody's like individuals, you know. So, and these rods here are 10-6, but we also have all kinds of other rods. I throw a 9-6, an 8-footer. I throw an 11-6.
Like James said, the
It all
best way
depends.
to figure out what rod you want to use is, you know, go into these shops and put it in your hands. A lot of people order it online or whatever, you know. You don't
Yeah,
know
that's
really-
not the way to go, because then you end up wasting some money.
Best way is just go and get it in your hands.
And Tomo's down in Salem, super nice guy. He'll steer you in the right direction. He's not going to upsell you. He doesn't care because he wants you to come back. If he upsells you, then you're not happy, he's going to lose a customer. Or Surfland or even Crossroads, they're not going to upsell you and stuff things in your pocket that you don't want, because those guys need you to come back. If you're going to go to Walmart or Bass Pro, they don't have any info. I know Martha and Liz down in the Surfland, they grew up with these things in their hands, so they know.
Then the same rule applies to reels. You have certain sizes and weights and rods. Again, matches up with the rod. If you have like we have a 10-foot, 11-foot rod, you wouldn't want a small like 3000 series reel on it.
I'm sorry, I just want to go back to the rods.
Sure, go ahead.
How many ounces do you think live eels are as far as how you match that up with the radio?
Live eels.
You can do
Our
our
buddy
buddy
Mark
Mark.
touch on that later?
Yeah, we'll touch it.
Yeah, we're gonna touch on that later, but the live eels are a little bit different. Same with throwing bait. So if you're gonna throw bait, you may be throwing a chunk ahead in 5 ounces of lead. So that rod may be rated to 8 ounces, but you're way over that. So you're actually going to cast it a little different to get that out there. So same with the eels. Some of the eels that I throw are probably close to a pound, right? Big eels, big fish. But I still throw them with this rod. You know what I'm saying? So some of that stuff is a little different. When you're throwing plugs and you're throwing them. I may make 500 casts in a night. I can't be throwing 500 casts with 5 ounces with that thing all night long. It's just, the rod's not going to last me.
You know, the eels is different sizes, different lengths. You know, when you're using a plug, you know this plug's a 1 ounce. You know this plug's an ounce and a half. With the eels, you can have a small eel that's 2 ounces up to, like James says.
Yeah.
We call them snakes. We'll use a big one that's 5-6 ounces. So it all depends on the size of the eel.
But there's a pretty big range there when you start throwing live eels. How you hook them and everything like that's going to depend on your cast as well. So the rod's still got to be able to handle some of that weight, but you're not chucking it the same way you would a plug.
You're not going to throw it as hard as you can.
Right. No, you can. I do. But that takes years of practice to be able to get those to do that. For anybody that's beginning, especially with live eels, they can be real fun and they will make you absolutely miserable. Literally miserable.
So again, like I said, outside who's real. If you do that, you're gonna be complaining, oh, why is it not casting, or,
Yeah, super, super important to match the rod with the reel, because you'll have a big weight difference in the reel, in the weight with the rod. You'll also end up with wid knots, or you won't be able to cast it.
or it could be vice versa, you know, a smaller rod with a bigger reel.
Yeah.
This, again, like James says, go into the bait shops, get your hands on them.
Yeah, I mean, this is a quick overview to give you a basic idea. You see tons of people go in and they'll buy a rod, they'll just pick out a reel and they put it together, and they have super, super hard time casting it. It's all because of the rods, the reel's too big for the rod, the reel's too small for the rod, they don't have the right line weight with the rod.
The same thing, it'll give you the size of the line that it can handle and stuff like that, depending on the size.
Yeah, and some of this too, you got line retriever and stuff like that. Some of that stuff, if you're starting out, don't worry about line retrieve and things like that, because you need to be able to get some experience in to figure out exactly some of that stuff. Now I have multiple reels. This one here is 36-inch retrieve. I have another one that's a 40-inch retrieve. I also have one that's only 24-inch retrieve. And I have all those for particular circumstances, depending on conditions.
Another tool that we like to use, just as important as the rod and reel,
It's your tie apps.
with the new phones, there's a tons of apps out there that'll give you time, tide, it'll give you fluctuations like this. In a lot of instances, time and tide is just as important as rod and reel. Like I said, again, with the tablets and the phones, this one's it's called Tides. And you can just type in where you want the tide, it'll give you a chart. It tells you lows and highs and how high the tide's gonna be.
Some people think I'm nuts too, but I know there's a lot of the other surfcasters out there that fish heavy. I got like 15 different apps on here that I'm chasing tides, winds, moons, I mean, you name it. But it's very, very important to watch these tides. So you see here, there's a minus tide here at the low. The high tides are gonna top out. Up here on Plum Island, we're gonna run for anywhere from like an 8-foot tide. We could have one almost 16-foot tide when we get a big storm. And the tide is going to help you figure out where the bait is holding in the particular tide. So this low tide here at minus 1.6 may be holding bait better than this higher tide at 8.8. Or it could be that particular bait is getting corralled up in the 10-foot tide. So by keeping track of your tides and watching, you'll be able to see, not right away, but see some patterns form. So it's, like I said, very important tool to have.
The great thing with these apps is you can go a year ahead, 2 years ahead. We can go on that app right now that we have this one, and we can plan out 4 or 5 trips that we want to take next year, just depending on.
Yeah, for example, so we had, we're making a plan to Block Island for this year, back in February. We even planned ferry, what we were gonna stay, everything. So when that time came, August 1st came, we knew what the tide was and everything. The only variable that throws you off with this stuff is the weather. We just happened to hit a good night, and it was very good.
All right, so we got all our equipment. We're ready to hit the beach. Get the sand spike. You get your rod and reel matched up. This is out on the refuge. Same thing. Fishing bait. This is probably the most not easiest low stress that you can do.
Basic, Very basic.
Set up your sand spike, grab your cooler, grab your chair. Very low key.
Yeah, and a lot of times you see them all lined up out there and, you know, everybody's having a good time. They have the drive-ons out there. Does anybody have a drive-on permit?
There you go.
Do you? Nice,
Two.
nice.
That's probably the most effective. You can just grab it in your truck and drive around.
Yeah.
Yeah, fishing bait is probably the most basic way to get started. Where
We had a juniors program over the weekend that Clay did a pretty good job at. Takes all the juniors out, sets them up just like this. Gets them all on a piece of bait, cast it out for them. They're able to manhandle the rods themselves. And we wait. So basically you're gonna be using fish finder rig. So you have your swivel, keeps your fish finder rig up top here so it doesn't slide down your leader. You want to have a decent leader. So anybody, what size leaders do people use? 20? 20-pound leader, anybody? 30?
40.
I use 50. I use 50-pound mono on everything. Stripers don't care. Fishing for trout or something like that is a little different, but 50-pound leader, your fish finder rig. Some people use a long leader on their fish finder rig. It causes you problems. So if you can shorten the fish finder rig up to, say, 10 inches, 12 inches, I know it may seem short, it will help you casting tremendously.
yeah, the longer that leader is, the tougher it is to cast.
Yes. So what's going to happen is after you do your cast, this is going to sit in the water, in the sand, and then this here, depending on what kind of current you got out there, will come up and will float around and it will separate from the weight. So even though you're only 12 inches away from your weight while you're casting, so you ever see the line helicoptering out there on you like this? If you shorten that leader, it cuts that down tremendously and you get a better cast and you can effectively put that where you want it. But that will kind of move out on you and separate from the weight.
There are other basic type of rigs, but I
This
find
works
the
best.
fish finder it's the easiest to tie, easiest to maintain. You can go to a lot of the area bait shops and they'll already have them made up, little bags.
Yeah. And what I like about this, the fish finder rig here too, is the big clip for the weight. So you have your current out there and it's not holding, you pull it in, clip it off, you clip your heavier weight on, back
You
on.
can adjust your weight
Very
accordingly.
easy.
You start out in the morning, it's nice and easy, you know, the 2 ounces holding fine. Tide's coming in, surf gets a little rougher, it's not holding like 4 seconds, you change it up to a 3-4 ounce.
Yeah.
Size is that hook?
There's no size. The hook size would depend on bait. If you're using like a cut mackerel or a cut menhaden or something like that, you probably want like a 6-7 aught hook.
Yeah, I got a 6 aught here.
Is that a circle one?
That is a circle hook.
That is, that.
No, that's not, no.
It's just a,
And just a heads up for everybody, next year Massachusetts is going to require everybody to use circle hooks, no J hooks.
Does that go with plugs too?
It does not go with the plugs. But I would suggest crushing barbs. I crush a ton of barbs. I also change my hooks out a couple times a year because they end up, you know, rusty and stuff. But even with live eels, don't know yet, but we may have to go to inline circle hooks with them as well. I'm a J hook guy. I don't gut hook fish. Mostly because I have the rod in my hand and I feel that tension and I can feel every little thing with that hit. Clay likes the J hooks, the circle hooks with his eel fishing. Neither one of us have a disparity in hookup ratio at all, so it's just a preference. I'll just have to get used to working with the circle hook.
so yeah, back to your, it would depend on the bait you're using. Like I said, cut bait, you're 6-7 aught. You're using clams or like probably the smallest you wanna go.
Unless you're fishing for flounder, that's
Unless you're fishing for
okay, yeah.
flounder, but for bass, yeah. Even the smallest bass is still gonna open his mouth pretty wide.
Yeah, they'll take that 5, 6, 7 odd hook in.
And you're also cutting down on mortality, you gotta hook it. But yeah, your hook size would depend on what you're using for bait.
Now, we do see how Clayton here doesn't have his rod in the pipe because he's fishing out there, and most of the time, when he's fishing bait or something, he's not even putting it in his sand spike. He puts it in the sand spike just for convenience to change different things. So most of the time, when you're fishing cut bait or clams or something, if you know there's bigger fish in the area, you want to make sure you're holding the rod, because you will lose a ton of fish if you just put it in the sand spike and look for this thing, right? So by standing there with the rod in your hand, you'll be able to feel that fish tapping it. I can't tell you how many times you'll have larger fish, feels like just a little, it feels like a little tiny schoolie. Whack that thing across their eyes, and you'll have them. But you can't if the rod's in the hole.
This one right here. Caught that one on clams, like James said, if I wasn't holding that rod,
Yeah.
because I'm not saying you can't hold the rod, but just my comfortability with it, because if you have one rod here and one rod here, and that fish hits that end rod, he's gonna spit that hook in.
Yeah, he's got to be long gone by the time you get over that rod. You know?
How long you been fishing the circle hooks?
Couple of years now.
Tough to get used to it first?
Yes and
Like,
no.
no?
Yes and no, yeah.
That's what I'm finding, it's like, I went to circle hooks this year, you know what's coming next year? A little bit tougher than I thought, a little more work. Or
Yeah.
A little more, you don't set it when you feel it.
Yeah, I
You can't set a circle hook,
Right.
that's part of the problem.
Offset
Yeah.
circle hook.
Well, even a
Offset.
regular circle hook, you tend to yank them out of the mouth. You just let the fish set the hook.
yeah, it's kind of,
I'm impatient.
I haven't bait fished really that much lately, except for with the juniors, or where I'll take some members of the club out. So my only real experience with the circle hooks is eel fishing, and yeah, it takes some time, but most of the times the way those fish hit the eel, they're whacking the crap out of it, so it's almost like a no-brainer just to
But
start
that goes
reeling.
along with keeping the rod in your hand. So if you feel that fish hitting, you do have time to make sure you set the hook properly. Now with them making us go to circle hooks, I don't know why they haven't come up with some kind of video on how to properly set the hook after getting a bite. They want us to save fish from release mortality, because every fish we hook and we put back, like 48% of those fish are dying. It's nothing that us as anglers are really doing unless it gets a gut hook. Like 99% of the time, if that hook is gut hook, the fish is gut hooked, that's dead. He may swim away, but he's dead. All those internal organs are right underneath that esophagus. So if there's any blood coming from a gill, he's gone. Just make sure you don't take any of those small ones home, you're getting in trouble. You put them back anyways, they're gonna die, they're gonna die. It goes back into the circle of life with crabs and lobsters and things like that. But I don't see, personally, I don't see a big issue of switching over to all circle hooks, all inline circle hooks.
So yeah, bait fishing, great way to get started, easy way, and you can catch big fish.
And to go with the bait fishing as well, one of the things that you really want to look for when you're out in the reservoir, refuge, is the structure that's out there. So if you go out in front of Surfland right there, at least you have the groins that are sticking out. You can fish around those groins and do quite well. We have the big sandbar down the other side, halfway between there and the jetty. You can fish in there. All good areas. You go over to lot 1. What's out at lot 1? Nothing, right? Or you go down to lot 6, and it's just a pancake out there, right? It's terrible. How do you catch fish there? Well, there's certain things, do you have that later on?
I don't.
All right, but what you're gonna look for is the way the water's moving out there in the sand. So you're looking for that soft structure. So I know right now at lot 3, there's a tremendous bar at low tide that's exposed. So that incoming tide comes in, you wanna be fishing with your bait inside of that trough. Because the fish aren't on the outside of it. You cast it way far out, the fish aren't out there. The fish come inside to eat the bait that's coming in with the tide. But when the tide turns around, that tide's flushing back out over the bar or through the cuts in the bar. Those fish are gonna be right on the outside of those cuts. So if I'm back here and there's the bar, I wanna make sure I get that bait right out on the other side of that bar. Because that water washes over the bar. It pulls all the sand eels, silver sides and whatnot, right out of the sand and puts them right in front of them. And that's where they'll be.
So if you're fishing the refuge and you're walking out on that boardwalk and you get to the end, you wanna look up and down the beach and you'll find those little, like Jim said, you'll find those little indentations, little change in the water.
So you'll be out there on a nice soft day, and there's little rollers coming in, and then you'll look over there and say, well, that water looks a little different or funny over there. It's doing something different. Go fish it. There's something going on with the current in the portion of the tide that's making it do that. Whether it's a rock under there or a bar's under there, there's something going on. So you want to go fish that because that's what's going to attract those fish. Because all the bait fish want to get into a corner and hide from the bass.
When you have wide open beach like we have here on the refuge, those fish are gonna hide in those little indentations, a little rock. They're gonna find wherever they can use trap bait or to push bait in there. And that goes to the refuge, but that goes for anywhere else. If you go down the Cape, if you go up to Maine, you're gonna wanna look for the little indentations in the water. Like James says, a little different water.
Beach fishing is probably, in my opinion, beach fishing is one of the toughest things to do. Because, like I said, you could go out there, it's not doing anything. But where's the fish? So you see tons of guys just going like this. All they're doing is casting. They're not really fishing. Right? So what you want to do is you want to make sure you find those areas. And sometimes it could be as simple as like a minor 2-foot little indent in the sand that fish is holding. Takes a lot of time to figure out those spots of how the water's moving across that. But over time, like I said, if you guys get out of the refuge, lot 1, bottom of the stairs, just off to the left, there's a hole at low tide. Low tide, you go out, look, fish if you want, and kind of make mental notes of what's out there. Then you can actually go back later on at high tide and say, I know that hole is right there. I saw it. Where did it go? But I know where it is. So if I'm walking down at lot 3, I know that where that bar is, right? Big long bar out there, and I know where that cut is. So how do I know where that cut is when that water fills in, right? Well, I looked back at the dune and made a mental note of the structure that's up on the dune, so I know I can go back, whoop, there's the cuts right here, so I can fish right there. You know what I mean? Don't get caught going up on the dunes. That's another story. That type of fishing really takes a lot of patience and time. Soaking bait is great, but if you learn and watch, there's all kinds of videos out there. If anybody's out there, look up Brian O'Connor. He's got a couple of YouTube videos that shows some of that beach fishing type stuff. You can do really well by putting the bait in the right spots.
Any other questions on bait?
Or the beach.
Just said soaking bait.
Soaking bait, basically, you're taking the chunk and casting it out, and the bait's sitting in the water. So you're not really moving it around like you would with lures, you know. That's what you're soaking the bait.
So now we'll move on to our favorite spot is plugs. Like James says, fishing plugs, you get to move a lot, hit these holes that you see on the beach. One of our favorite ones is a pencil popper. It's a bait that splashes on the top. It's a top water bait.
So this plug right here, this fish here was 46 inches. And it was actually caught on this size, not this size. So when you start out, anybody who wants to fish plugs, fish a pencil popper, very easy. So how you fish a pencil popper is you make your cast, and then as you're reeling slow, but you're also the idea with these guys, soft water, rough water, doesn't matter what kind of water. Big winds, no winds. I fish these things all the time, in the daylight. And these are designed to walk on top of the water like this. If you ever see a mackerel that's live and you throw it out as bait, you see this tail going like this, right? All over the top of the surface. Because he's got that hook in him, and he's going like this crazy. Pencil popper is basically mimicking that fish. It's going back and forth, back and forth. It's just like that bait fish's tail would be going. You make your cast. In order to get it to do that, you're reeling slow. A lot of guys reel fast, they reel too fast, they don't catch as many fish. But you're basically going like this. Don't do the Jersey shuffle. The Jersey shuffle is... Those guys are nuts down there. Don't tell that to my buddy DJ. But it's basically, it's just nice soft motion like this while you're reeling slowly, and that plug will work on the top. You'll know when you're doing it right because you'll see a nice consistent splash. If you're not consistent with the splash, you're either going too fast or too slow. Oh, wait a second. You're never slow enough, in my opinion. Or you don't have the right cadence down, and it's all practice. All it is all practice, practice, practice.
Are you dressing up those plugs at all?
Pencil poppers, I don't dress. Some of them are sold dressed. Yeah, this one in the picture's dressed. That's a swimmer though, so swimmer's a little different. I dress some of those. The pencil poppers I don't. This particular one is designed for this size hook. When you start dressing them, it creates drag. So if I'm out on a little bit windy a day, I can't get that thing to cast as well.
When you're dressing up plugs, like the one that's in the picture or something like this, it's just to add a little action to it.
Yeah, and this is basically the same plug here as well. You notice this one, I've taken the rear hook off, added a small little tungsten weight on. So the idea with that is when I'm fishing, I'm catching small fish, I'll throw this so it just saves the fish. You know, if I know I'm in a pot of bigger fish, then I don't mind throwing one with two hooks because this rear hook is going right into the gills of the smaller fish.
So
Striper's always going to hit the head. So I use this and it saves those small fish.
So you can certainly dress the plugs. It's more done on like swimming plugs.
Yeah, and some guys dress their pencil poppers. I don't know, I think it disturbs their action. But you also go to ones like this. This is 2.5 ounces. and you work these all the same way. This is 1 3/4, so this stuff is, you're working it all the same way with that action. You get experienced a little bit, it's a little different because I can work a side action, almost make a spook out of the pencil, or I can drag it a little slower and get that thing to dig into the waves as I go, but that's.
And then metal lips and darters, those are swimming plugs. We said, you add the tail feathers on the tail
Yeah.
to dress it up, just to give it a little.
So,
more.
I mean, if anybody's looking to find fish and they have trouble, throw on this happens to be a Mambo minnow, throw on an SP minnow, they just catch fish. They got a nice, tight little wiggle, same with the mag data, sort of the same thing in this class here, tight little wiggle, they just catch fish. If you're struggling, cast and retrieve. Those are all cast and retrieve. A lot of times it doesn't matter how fast you're retrieving, how slow you're retrieving, fish like that little wiggle. I'm looking for big fish, so I'm not really throwing those little guys too much. The spring and late fall, you know, what was our last fish last year? It was November 5th out on the island. We were throwing that stuff, throwing that smaller stuff like that.
Another one of our favorites is needlefish. They're just a smaller, thinner profile lure.
Yeah, one of the things with needlefish is most people get very discouraged with them. This one here will sink, this one here will float. They don't do anything in the water. And basically you're going to cast and you're retrieving. And you just retrieve it. You're not putting any action into it or anything. Very simple plug for anybody to use. Biggest thing is you have to be painfully slow. If you think you're going too slow, you've got to slow down more. I mean, it's okay. I've done very well with these, and
A lot of guys refer them as sticks with hooks.
sticks with hooks. You know, this is one of my favorites here, is throwing a huge one. Or some of these other ones like this. Not a lot of people use these on the island either, but I happen to like them.
This one, what you want, you big
Yeah.
one to show.
Yeah. Picking the right time and conditions for these. They are a nighttime plug. So you're going to want to be in the dark with them. You don't want to have super heavy surf with the needlefish either. Relatively calm conditions. Again, with any of the plugs, with any of the bait, what you're most looking for with that tide comes in and the tide goes out. What a lot of guys don't understand is that's not what's moving the fish. It's the current. Current is moving the fish. So every time that tide comes in, it's going up the island or down the island. Right? I mean, it's got to go somewhere. So it's going either up or either down. And there are times when you're out there, that tide's coming in, and it's not doing anything. It's just coming in. And you'll be able to feel it, because when you cast your plug or even your bait, you'll be able to tell if that line's trying to move on you. Of course, you cast a plug and you'll see it moving. It's not fast, but you got to really watch. If you don't see that plug moving to one side or the other, I go home. I'm not, because the chances are none to catch fish. Same with outgoing tide. Outgoing tide, it's going to move one way or the other. And that's where some of those sandbars and those cuts and those troughs help create that water movement along the beach. So the water's coming out and it's hitting up against that sandbar, it's got to go somewhere. So it goes over this way, because it seeks its own level, it's going to go out that cut. Once it goes out the cut, it's going to flow faster. So you're going to fish those areas around those cuts, because that water's going to come out and go like this. It's just going to spill right out into different directions. Same with incoming. When that water comes in, the water's gonna be washing over the bar, and then it's gonna come back out the cut. So you're gonna be fishing up in here, and that water's coming right across. And the bass are gonna sit right inside those areas. Okay?
I got a question for you.
Yep.
Okay, describe that day. I think everybody would be interested in.
Describe that day.
That
This is a
particular
prime,
day.
What do you want us to give a secret? There are no secrets.
this is a prime, this is a prime example of elephants eat peanuts.
Yeah.
We had been fishing for probably an hour and a half.
Anyways,
We couldn't muster up anything, so we switched to smaller plugs. We were catching, 25-inch, maybe a couple of legal fish. And then out of nowhere, this fish actually, almost like a miracle that I caught this fish, because a big fish like this, when it takes a swipe at a lure and you lose it,
it's gone.
99.9% of the times you're done. It takes one swipe, that's the one chance you get. So he took a swipe at my pencil. I said, oh man, that was a nice fish. Threw it back to the same spot, working the pencil through. What these bigger fish will do when they see an injured bait fish or lure, you'll see the tail slap. So after the second time I'm running this pencil popper through, I see the tail whack my lure, probably about 4 feet in the air. Now my heart is, because I just saw the tail. I'm like, holy smokes. I threw it again, missed him, he swiped at it again. Finally, the 4th time I got this.
And it was on a pencil, this same color here,
Even smaller.
but the smaller size. The only 1 ounce, little tiny one. Little
So it was
Weather.
right before sunset, probably about 7:30. It was,
What-
you can't
weather
tell
was
this
decent.
because it's a wake, but it was relatively pretty calm.
We were getting swells that were not breaking. They were just swells coming in
Swells.
around 2 to 3 feet. So we're getting bounced around a little bit, but not bad. And
It's always a tough decision that we make when we have a day like this and we're catching a bunch of small fish. Yeah, it's fun, but we know in this area it's holding large fish. Usually if there's small fish around, there's no large fish. It's either one or the other. But yeah, like I said, just the way he took a couple swipes at it and I missed him and I still caught it.
that was 38 pounds.
And on a small lure that we were catching 25-inch fish on.
So you used the term, well, I'm curious about a riptide. Is that any correlation to good fishing opportunities?
It does, but it also depends on some other conditions as well, on where you are on the beach. So the rip currents are basically what I said, you got the bar there, bar here, and those rip currents are ripping through that cut. It may be a huge, huge cut, but that water's flushing back out. So you got those big waves that are just pushing in and pushing in. The water's gotta go somewhere. So it goes back out, and when it's heading back out, that's those rip currents that we're gonna have the next few days. Anyways, so it's,
I had a question.
How late in the season or how early, and was it high or tide or low tide?
that was actually in the month of September,
That was, beginning of September,
Yeah.
right around this time.
just as the fall run got started.
Just that, the tide was incoming.
Yeah, the tide was incoming, and I think we still had 2 hours, no, 3 hours till high. That was about half the time.
Yeah, it was about half time.
Do you use pencils at night if you're in the dark?
I have, and they do work, but you need the conditions. The last weekend, while I was fishing, we had the bright moon out, and I did throw a pencil and did get fish.
I would say
They were all
probably,
in the 30, 36 inch range.
probably 80% of the time you're not going to it, like Jim said.
So you have that small, 2-hour window between when the sun rises and then when it gets high in the
No.
sky.
Fish with pencil all day long.
You fish with pencil
All day long.
I've always had, so they turn off when the sun goes up.
Angela had fish earlier in the week on a pencil, 1 o'clock in the afternoon, right? So it's really learning your spots. So sometimes when you're out there and you're learning your spots, you will find that you can use those particular plugs at that particular time, at any time of the day. So if you know that high tide is incoming and it's pushing bait in at 12 o'clock lunchtime, you know, you got to fish it. You know, you can have some success. How do boat guys do it, right? You're out in the middle of the day. Scott's out in the middle of the day. His wife's getting freaking monsters, right? So it's the middle of the day. How do they get it? Well, it's a little easier with a boat because you got those fish finders.
Most of my fish that I've caught this year, over 40 inches, have been in 6 to 8 feet of water
Yeah. In the daylight.
in the daylight.
But he's reaching spots where we can't get to. Right? That's a little bit of the advantage.
This is almost basically the same condition as that previous one. As you can see, just those small rollers. Nice calm. This is actually sunrise.
This is sunrise. Down at lot 6. Again, there's no spot burning or anything like that. I mean, I don't really believe too much, but because if you gotta go, if I tell you where to go, you still gotta go get them. You know, I've fished some spots for the last 5 years to learn them. You know, and somebody else comes in, yeah, they might get lucky and pluck a fish or two, but they're not gonna have the consistency that I do. This fish was around 36 inches, top water plug. The water behind us was a little bit deeper, but there was see the wave back there? That's the bar.
So
That fish was on the other
that
side
wave's
of that
coming over
bar.
the bar and then it reforms right about where James is and crashes again.
So you're swimming out there with the wetsuit and everything?
Well, it's a, that's kind of wet wading, Steve's right.
We'll get to it, but yeah,
Yeah.
we fish in wetsuits, just more comfortable than waders for us.
My wife would rather me be in the wetsuit because I'm buoyant. If I fall in, I can get up, I'm safe. Or at least I find my body.
But back to the conditions, like James said, you can fish the top water anytime, but this is like basically the conditions that we like for top water. Low light, nice and flat. Because when you're fishing the top water lures, you're almost fishing to sight for the fish, you know what I mean? Like they need to see that lure splashing around. And it just,
And that was last year.
a little more better conditions when it's nice and calm and flat like that with the low light. Can you do it during the day in a little heavier conditions? Yeah. But for top water baits, this condition, you can see in the other slide, it was just about the same.
That was actually
It's
very
tough to
short.
see, but it's about the same on the back.
Yeah, almost the same conditions. That was in the nighttime, this one was in the daytime, in the morning rather.
Same thing, these were top water, this was top water, basically the same conditions, low light, early in the morning.
This was actually not on the island.
This is one of the only ones, this is Block Island.
That's Block Island. This particular night, like I said, we planned it in February. Clay never fished Block Island before. I've been over there a few times.
This
So-
was probably one of the best fish nights of my whole career. This is one of the smallest fish that we caught that night. Again, like that big fish that we caught, the other slide, it was, everything just lined up.
It lined up, we got over on the island pretty quickly.
I said, James, we gotta take at least one picture of one of these fish.
Yeah. But it
Again,
was
just
a
one of those
conditions
nights.
thing. So when we got over there, almost all the island had dirty water. We were like bummed out because, you know, stormage just messed things
By
up.
dirty water, we mean
Right.
weeds, heavy surf.
Yeah, you know, it's still silty water from the sand and everything. We couldn't fish.
This was the only
happened
clean
to-
spot we found in the
Yep.
whole.
We find this one
We
clean
spent
spot.
almost 3 hours scouting spots on Block Island. They were all stacked up in there.
Three hours straight of fish between 36 and 46 inches.
And another cool story to go along with this. This was in the morning. We fished for about another hour. We said, "We're beat." We started walking back in. Found a $20 bill in front of this car.
Yeah.
So we had the fish of a lifetime, and we had free breakfast.
That whole thing was a very unique situation because when we got out there, in the evening. We end up back at the spot around 8 o'clock. When we pull up to this spot, there's a car in front of us. Well, the guy getting out of the car, he's got a Surfland shirt on. I said, we're in.
Just another picture.
Yeah, this was last year. This was also down at lot 6. And you can see there's a darter. Darters are kind of a little unique plug. Are you going to Eagles already? Oh, there you go. So darters are a little unique plug. Where almost no one on the island fishes them. We don't have any depth to really get these things. They'll dig down and they zigzag. Most of the wooden ones I don't fish. These are all super strike. They're all plastic. Every single one's the same. The wooden ones, every single wooden one is different. So you may get a dud. You got to throw it out. It's just a dud. But the plastic ones work well. So these guys are cast out, and then it's a simple retrieve straight. A couple of cranks to dig it down. Once you're retrieving, I take the rod, and as you're reeling, you just stick your finger out, hit the line, and the darter will switch directions. And these will go from a couple feet this way, and come right back a couple feet this way. So it's a very natural presentation.
We've been finding the last couple of years, these have worked really good. Everyone's heard of all the menhaden around the last couple of years.
The big pogies,
That's right.
that's what they do.
Are you using a stripping glove to do that? Is that what you have glove?
The glove is for casting.
So is that so you can feel the line or just?
No, just so you, when you cast, so if I'm casting this, I'm casting it,
So if
right?
you're making 200 casts a night with braid, it rubs on your finger.
Not only that, if you don't have that release point perfectly, that braid will slip the finger right off. It'll cut the end of your finger right off.
We both use a bailless reels, so there's no bail on that, so we are physically holding that rod twice every time we cast it. Once to take it off, cast it, once to put
bailless.
it back on.
This comes on, you cast out.
Is the reel made that way? Did you remove the nail?
This reel happens to be made that way.
We'll get to the reels later. We do a lot of rock hop, like climbing up on rocks. So if we have to have a slip and fell and
Hit the bail,
hit that,
you break the bail, you're done for the night.
So those reels are specific. They're called Van Stalls. They're specially made for surf casting.
But the darter again is, you've got to have some kind of movement across. You know, your current has to be moving. If you don't have current, the plug won't be effective. Much like the needlefish, it won't be effective unless you have some kind of current.
Good question.
Sure.
You're mentioning bogeys.
Yeah.
How has the amount of bogeys out front affected your surfcasting?
Been terrible.
Terrible.
What's
Terrible.
Yeah,
Because they get drunk. They literally get drunk on the pogies, and they won't. Scott on the boat can tell you he's on his boat and he's got pogies. And you can just see the bass underneath the swimming around because they're just so full. They're like this. Same thing surfcast.
Yeah.
You see the pogies, you see the bass.
well, I always wondered why would bass swim close to shore if it's got all the food?
They won't.
It doesn't. They don't.
If the pogies are a mile out, they're going to stay a mile out. And
So I
that's-
went through a stretch from August 12th to September 2nd without a fish. Just because I was stubborn fishing a certain area of the island. Right, I was up on lot 6 and they just weren't there.
It's a frustrating part of striper fishing. The stripers will actually get, like we call it, drunk on a certain bait. If there's a lot of mackerel, like in the spring around, they won't touch anything but mackerel.
Yeah.
There's a lot of, silver sides and sand eels. You can catch a fish this big on some little bait like this because they're only on sand eels and silver sides. But yes, it's good to have the menhaden around like that, but in the mass quantity and these big biomasses that we've had, has been bad for boat fishermen and surfcasters. Because like you said, you can have spot guys out in the boat, they're out there with their live hoagies swimming around, and there's 4 or 5 30-pound bass underneath the boat just swimming around, but they don't want to touch it because they're like this.
And a lot of it has to do with all about finding what bait is out there that they're feeding on. So in my surf bag, I'll have swimming plugs, needlefish, big needlefish, small needlefish, poppers, pencils. You know, they're all stuffed in here. You know, I have small algags, they catch fish. You know, I hate throwing them because I'm getting a lot of small fish.
I was just gonna get to that. The way you find out what bait's coming in and what season is basically just how everybody else does it with a bag full of lures and what you air out from the bait shops and stuff.
Well, that goes to keeping a log. So I have a log book I keep. I'm not perfect with it. I know some guys go through and are just meticulous with every single thing that's not really super necessary, unless you like that. I'm not a data keeper, so it doesn't matter. But I know when the certain bait fish are supposed to show up. You know, right now the peanut bunker is in the area, along with some silver sides and sand eels. Now the silver sides have been pretty scarce this year, and I haven't seen any sand eels. Up in Hampton, they just had a big dump of sand eels right out of the Hampton River, so that's a plus.
Yeah, but to your question, it's more or less just getting out there and seeing it. If James goes out one night and I can't, hey, I saw a bunch of bunker out there tonight, so,
Yeah.
you know, we'll go and target bunker lures, or if I go up to Hampton and they say, hey, James, there's tons of sand eel, you know, it's work together with a couple friends, a couple buddies, and
Yeah, I mean, I talked to Ron over the weekend.
I knew there was sand hills up there.
What's that?
Yeah, at hand,
Hampton, oh yeah.
just recently,
Yeah.
because they were doing some stuff with Penn.
And Ron saw some sand eels and silver sides out of the Parker over the weekend too, right, Ron?
Small ones.
Yeah. So it's kind of like that little bit of network that's going around. So, and then that goes along with Plum Island Surfcasters. With the club, we have access to, you know, there's 300 members. They all don't fish as much as half of them, but there's probably 50 guys or so that fish pretty regularly. So you can
Network with.
Yeah, you can network with them. We have a private forum that guys will chat back and forth and say, oh, I hit fish this today. They don't tell you where to go, but they'll say they were on sand eels today. So I can go out and fish some smaller stuff.
If you go into Surfland or
Still
something
tell you.
like that, you just say, what's hit?
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, Surfland is
Yep.
absolutely super with that. Some bait
So
shops don't pass that info too much.
other than pencil poppers and daughters, our next favorite is American eels.
Eels.
July and August into September, we're almost eels exclusively.
Yeah, I mean, I do them so much that I have an eel tank and stuff set up at home.
He's got an eel tank.
You know, so I always have, I don't know, anywhere between 15 and 25 at home, ready to go.
Now, what do you feed them?
You know, they'll live a year without anything.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, like back to you.
They'll live right outside the tank for a day. I've had some come out, didn't know when to come home. The thing's down near the garage door. I picked them up, I put them back in the tank. The only ones that are gonna survive a nuclear bomb is the cockroaches and eels.
Twinkies.
You guys, there's a big thing, you fishing at night, but I also heard you can fish them all day, what do you do?
You can fish them all day, but what you're really looking for during the day is some heavier current. So like you find at the mouth of the river, or you find down at the Parker River. And you want to get them down deep as far as you can. Because most of those fish in the daytime are all going to be sitting on the bottom. They will turn colors. I keep them in a black tank so that they're dark for when I'm out there at night. It's just the way they do, because the eels will change colors on you. But yes, you can effectively fish most of them are all at night, that's,
These will, all be fish we caught on eels.
yeah, that one was 44 inches.
That one was not too long ago.
Yeah.
Same thing, just in the water, eels, this one wasn't too long ago.
Catch and release, most important time.
So you under,
So to go along with that is, eels are expensive, right? Eels are costly, they're at least $2 a piece, right?
eels should be like towards the end of your stepping up. Like James said, they are a pain in the ass to hook and to keep, and
So,
I would put eels up on the list, you know,
of more experienced guys.
after you've been out there a while, yeah.
Yeah,
But you'd hook them, right underneath the jaw. There's like a little point where it comes together and then
has to be through the eye.
on
If
the
you
eye socket.
don't get that hook through the eye socket, that eel's coming off.
They
First
actu-
cast, probably.
They have a skeleton like jaw, so you want to go through it and then out that eye socket, because if you don't go out that eye socket after 10 casts, you're gonna.
If you get it through the eye socket, you can take that thing, cast it as hard as you can, that eel is not coming off. One of the ways that I do get it on there is, you're in the beach, throw the thing in the sand. Throw it in the sand, that gets some sand on my hand, and then you'll be able to pick it up right by the head. And then get that hook right up through the jaw, out the eye. Don't let it go. That eel will coil up on your leader. You gotta cut it off
And you'll be
and
swimming.
start over.
Eel ball.
Yep, eel ball. So you get it in your hand, as soon as you get that thing hooked, right, and you're close to the water, throw it on the ground away from you. Right, because you got your rod in your hand, you got that eel on it, throw it away from you. So when you throw it away from you, that eel actually stretches out when it gets close, and then it hits the sand, and then it's just wiggling on the sand. So it's not gonna ball up on you. Then you can reel up and let it dangle.
So I said put the eels at the, I would say part at the bottom of the eel is go through all your lures first and then get the eel. We could sit here and do eels all night. It's
Yeah, it's tough.
tough. You
It's
want-
tough, but once you
Once
really
you master it, then
it can be fun.
it's all these fish are on eels.
That was 30 pounds.
These are all live eels.
This was early in the season.
Oop.
Yeah. That was early in the season. That was June, right?
Yeah, actually.
That was on Cranes Beach in June. We were fishing an area. We knew where the bar was. I was fishing with one of our friends, and she had already got into a 40-inch fish. I'm like, oh, we're good. So, again, we're fishing on that bar. We're out on the bar, and the tide was coming in. We got to the tide so far that we had no choice. We moved back, and then we're fishing the eel across the bar into that trough. The fish are in that trough from a meter clay away. Boom! And then she also, the girl I was fishing with, she also had another 41-inch fish. I only, this one was only 34 inches. That's all I had for the night. But early season, it was pretty fun. And especially it was her personal best, so.
So this is how we like to fish out on rocks, the wetsuit.
Yeah, this is way more advanced stuff now. This is where we're dressed up in the wetsuits, we're out there. Ron calls me nuts, but a little. So I could be swimming out 50, 60 yards to a rock, right? So along with that said, I'm not just going out to that rock. I'm actually working that water. I didn't do it Sunday, Ron, because you guys are already fishing that area. But I fish the area in front of me first. Fish it out, fish it out, fish it out. Then I'll get on that rock that's out there. Because a lot of times those fish will be in, knee-deep water. 20, 30, 40 pounds right there. And you'll spook them if you walk right in. So I usually wait and make your casts into that shallow water and then work your way out. Because once you spook them, they're spooked way out. And then you'll have a tough time.
See what else we got.
This was late in the season. You see we're bundled up with a hat and stuff. We were down in Rhode Island.
This one goes with it.
Yeah. Yeah, it was cold. But that day there was no fish either. But, anybody's interested in wetsuit and stuff like that, you know, take a ride up and see Cinnamon Rainbows up in Northampton there. But this is,
These were a couple just from the other day.
this was last Thursday.
Same thing.
Yeah, same night. So I fished another tournament last Friday, and when I know I only do a few a year, so when I know it's coming, I'm fishing every single night a week before that tournament. Fishing all my spots, trying to figure out where those fish are gonna be, so when I get to the tournament time, I know where they're at. Sure enough, we fished, we had those fish. I lost a huge fish. It was way over 40 pounds on Wednesday. A couple of 36-inch fish. It was with clay. We both had 36-inch, 37-inch fish. On Thursday, Friday, I go out. Boom. Between Friday at 5 o'clock and 6 o'clock the next morning on Saturday, fished all night. Took a little break in between. 5 fish over 40 inches. 20 fish over 30 inches. That doesn't happen often. I just happen to be in the right spot. So there is some luck to it.
So catch and release, we're two really big advocates of catch and release. Obviously, it's your right to keep the fish, do what you want, but under the legal guidelines, but we're two big advocates of catch and release.
Yeah, I haven't kept the fish in 2 years. 2 years now. The last one I got hooked, I took home for my
We
sister.
take measures of smaller fish in the spring, we'll, clamp down the barbs, we'll use single hooks.
Yeah.
All stuff that really helps out. We don't throw the same,
I
fish
never
the
take a
same.
phone with me. Another important thing is I never take a phone with me, but I have a little waterproof camera I always have with me to go along with part of your logbook there as well is I take a picture. Take a quick picture. First one, like last Friday night, I didn't take too many pictures because they were just, I knew I'd already gotten a 41 and a 44-inch fish. So why bother measuring them, taking pictures? You're just going to sacrifice the fish, possibly. So unless it was really big, I wasn't going to take any more pictures. But not only with the catch and release, you can take a quick picture, right? So I'm up on the rock, I got the fish right here, I'm still in the water. Got the fish right here, I can take a quick picture right here, click, fish back in the water, swims way nice. That's one reason why we also use plugs a lot. Because with the plugs are always in their mouth, not in their gut. Also, the other important thing is your fish grip. This here is a lifesaver. So if you want to get pictures or anything, you can take this, and this is how I did it with the tournament too, is I get that fish, get him in that fish grip, right? He's locked in. He's back in the water. And I can walk all the way up to the beach, right? Walk all the way up the beach. With the fish still in the water, I can set my tape measure up, my tournament tag I need or whatever it is, I can pull my camera out. Then at the last minute, fish is up, click, 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 fish is back in the water, and I can walk back and release them. Real simple. These are like $5. I mean, and they save a ton of fish. They really do. And thumbs. Always. One other thing with the catch and release too is these tape measures here. If you're out there and you're looking to take one home, be very careful. When you measure a fish, this has to be flat. This cannot be over the fish like this. That does not give the proper measurement. And if you get stopped, because I know Gareth and Ryan's the Mass EPO, and Gareth is the Federal Wildlife Officer, they'll stop you. If they see a fish that's borderline, they'll stop you. And they're gonna pull something like this out, but they're gonna stretch that thing to make sure that's 28. This one here I use, and that's only a couple of dollars more than this one. So when I lay this out, I can lay this right next to the fish. That's perfectly straight. I know that fish is right in size. Bingo. So if you guys use one of these, be careful. Make sure the fish is legal. If you're going to take it, please practice catch and release.
And then just another great way to get into fishing and to learn stuff is join a fishing club. That's how me and James met through the Plum Island Surfcasters. Visit our website, all the information is there to join.
But there's other clubs too. I know Mass Bass is on the South Shore. I'm a member down there also. You can look them up. There's others in the area as well. I know Jamil and Lawrence, he has kind of a little group that gets out.
But if you can join a fishing club, it's a great way
Yeah.
to further. A lot of clubs have like our club, the Plum Island Surfcasters, every month we have a speaker.
Last night we had our meeting, and it was a round table, so everybody discusses what they were using, what worked, what didn't work, how their seasons went, so everybody can kind of measure up almost, you know. We do have year-long tournaments in the club, but it's more like bragging rights than anything, so. Clay won last year with that 38-pound fish. Then you run into other things too, out there with other fishermen. I'm not afraid. I stop and talk to everybody. I don't care. Right? What does it matter? We're all after the same thing. We're out there having fun. Try to get the kids out, because if you look around, we're not young. Right? A couple of us are, right? Right? You guys are fairly young there, but for the most part, a lot of surfcasters that are out on the beach fishing up here, we're older. Clay does a great job with our junior prom blue. We have 38 kids.
Total is 77.
77. How many, we had 9 or 10 on Saturday?
Had like 10 kids fishing on the beach on Saturday, and then Sunday we did a boat trip, which we had 16 kids.
So a lot of that stuff helps with the club too, is we get them out, do some stuff.
But yeah, any other questions?
Quick question about licensing.
Yep.
Yes.
So I think there's a few folks from New Hampshire in here.
Yep.
We can't come down and
Well,
fish.
certainly can.
We can't.
Saltwater license is reciprocal.
I'm sorry, saltwater is
Yep.
reciprocal, so we
Yep.
buy the $11 tag up there.
Yep.
Come down here, we're good to go.
For New Hampshire, when you buy New Hampshire tag, you're good in Maine, New Hampshire, Massachusetts.
Oh, really?
When you're in Maine, you're good for New Hampshire, Massachusetts. You go one state each way, or 2 states down. Like, I get my New Hampshire license, then I go and I apply for my free New York license. Because my New York license allows me to fish Connecticut and Rhode Island. My New Hampshire license allows me to fish Massachusetts. So I'm good from Maine to New York.
And to go along with the licensing too, I don't bring my phone with me, so I don't. You can have your license with you on the phone electronically, and don't let anybody tell you that doesn't work, because it does. Anything on here electronically, as long as it's yours, you're good. I don't bring my phone with me, so I keep mine in. I have laminated. It cost me like $3 at Staples or something. And it's good for the season. I put it.
Yep, that saltwater license is federally, so it's reciprocal.
Yeah, so like
But
this one here.
some states don't, so you gotta.
So it's a little different with the Mass one. So Mass one will do Connecticut and Rhode Island because the states are touching. And then Mass will also do New Hampshire. When I go up to fish in Maine,
Yeah, that's me.
it costs you like $1 or something in Maine, so it's not a big deal. They charge you that $1 or $2 just to get you to register with them, so it's up there, so they know when you go up there, you're good.
Where did you say, to look for the wetsuits? Or the
I get mine up at Cinnamon Rainbows.
Cinnamon Rainbow?
Yeah, that's up in Northampton.
It's actually like a surf shop, but.
Yeah, and if you go in there, just tell them that you're Surfcasting, the guy will help you out. So what you're gonna look for is a 3-4 wetsuit. That gives you a thickness of 4 in the core, 3 in the extremities.
They come in different thicknesses.
Yeah,
Bill.
I mean, I have heavier ones for colder water and stuff like that, but
I noticed both of you guys have whistles on. Is that for emergency? or-
safety,
Yeah,
as best you can.
usually at night, I mean, we stay relatively close to one another, and we kind of know, but
If you
Something
fall,
ever happened.
you blow the
it's like an 89-cent waterproof whistle at
Right.
Walmart. Yep.
Yeah, so we can hear each other. You're really not gonna attract somebody else. What we also do too is, when we're fishing at night, I try to carry 3 lights with me. So I have my regular light, then I have my backup light, and then I have my uh-oh light. You don't know what happens out there. So if we're out there doing our thing, I can give Clay a couple of clicks, he knows that I'm on.
You don't use headlamps?
I don't use a headlamp, I don't like the things on my head.
Okay.
You have-
So yeah, you can just get like a waterproof flashlight.
Yeah.
And then surgical tube, and you go to any bait shop, they sell it by the inch.
Okay.
And just
keep it.
just
That rubber happens to be out of a 5-gallon pail cover.
But any bait shop that they'll have that surgical tube in different.
And I haven't found a headlamp that will outperform this light here at all. Every headlamp I have is trashed, gone after a week. This one here, Clay, how long you had this one?
Wow.
I have my other one. I carry 2 of these and then a little small one inside the bag, but these here is a Pelican. And the one I have is 2 years old.
They're like $18.
Yeah, they're 18, 19 bucks. But I never go out fishing at night without my lights.
And all the stuff that we told you here tonight, that's how we fish. Doesn't mean that's how you have to. You're more comfortable with the headlamp.
Yeah,
There's
by all
nothing saying
means.
you can't. It's
Same with rods or any of the gear here. I know a lot of guys aren't gonna spend, $210 for a bag. But the way we fish, I don't know how many bags I went through. They're just trashed after a half a season, or like when you look at something like this is $1,500. That's a lot of money, right? But we're in the water so much, this is gonna last us for 5 or 6 years. I spend $100 on an outfit, and out where we are, sometimes it don't make it a week. It's crazy, but the saltwater.
yeah, just
kills
personal
stuff.
preference. We both just like the light that makes, but it doesn't mean that you can't use a headlight.
I wait till Walmart has headlamps on sale, and I go down and I buy 6 of them.
Yeah,
Because after a night of 5-foot waves, you just go and throw it back to the truck and break out another one, because
Yep.
first one isn't worth
yeah.
it. By the time you open up the battery case by the next weekend, it's all done.
Question on licensing.
Yep.
Being from New Hampshire, how far up the Merrimack can I fish?
To the 495.
The 495 bridge where DeLuca is,
Okay.
DeLuca Chevy,
Yep.
that's considered brackish water. On the other side of that 495 bridge is considered fresh water.
Okay.
So up to that 495 bridge where DeLuca is, it's considered brackish, all the way down.
Graded line is what you use.
Yes.
Newbies, is there something you get adapted to?
If you're just starting out, mono's easier,
Yeah.
because with braid you need certain pliers to cut it.
Yeah, braid, you really need
The
the
knots
carbide
aren't the
cutters.
same. If you're starting out, just, you're gonna go down to Surfland tomorrow, buy your first setup, I would
Yeah.
recommend mono.
That's what
It's
Yeah,
easier
you
to
can-
tie,
you
easier to
can
cut.
run- You can run like a 17 or 20-pound mono without a problem, whereas I'm running 50-pound braid. But with that said, you're still gonna wanna have a heavier leader, right? So I always use a 50-pound mono leader as well. I like mine long. I don't use a barrel swivel, Clay uses a barrel swivel. I'm not that smart, I reel mine into my eye and it cracks into you, you know. Then I gotta spend money and the wife is killing me. But anyways, so I use a long leader, we're up on the rocks. When I get that fish and bring that fish around, I can grab that heavier leader and hold on to it. If you're fishing some smaller stuff or braid, do not grab the braid because that braid will tear you up. It will cut right through you like a razor.
Braid is very strong, like pulling resistance. It's not very abrasion resistant. So
No stretch.
there's
no stretch.
There's pros and cons to both. You're fishing the open beach like out here, you know, braid directly to the lure is not a big deal. If you're going to like some rock and stuff, you definitely want like a mono leader because you could take 80-pound braid and go like this on a rock twice and it's going to cut. It's
And
not
if it
very
has a
abrasive.
barnacle on it, the
Pull
barnacle, you just push it once like this. Because if you have that line on any tension at all, it just touches a barnacle.
But mono is very,
Snap it like
monofilament is very abrasion resistant. You could take 15-pound mono and go, and it's not going to break. But you take that 60-pound braid and do it twice. So, starting out, recommend use mono because, like I said, it is easier to tie, easier to cut.
See, I've fished for 30 years. It was BC, 4 children, and
Yeah.
you know, so I used to both of them, but
And braid gets expensive.
so
Braid does get expensive.
Braid's
If you fill a spool with braid, you're looking at 40, 50 bucks. You know, where it could be 10, 12 bucks for a month. Yeah.
But as for gear though, when I first met James, the setup I was fishing with, other than the plugs that are anywhere from $15 to $50, my whole setup was $240 for a rod, reel, line, everything ready to fish.
Yep.
And then
And a decent setup at that.
yeah, but I took my time, I launched first sail, and now I've got one of those.
Yeah, and like the winter time is the best time to go find some stuff as well, because like Plum Mountain Surfcasters, we have a show every year. Rissa down in Rhode Island has a fantastic, huge show, tons and tons of vendors. Our show up here is a smaller, more quaint type thing. We got some really great vendors as far as plug makers, slash, almost anything you want. So it's $10 to get into something. It's usually in March, and that information will be out there. So anybody wants a flyer to take with them, more than welcome.
Can you just talk about the moon phase for a second? What are you looking for?
Yep. This is one we could have a whole nother talk on that too.
We could spend 3 hours on it,
Yeah.
you know? So the moon phase is,
You can talk to guys that like full moons, they hate full moons, they like new moons. It's, you definitely, when you get to the full and new moons, you're definitely getting more of a tide, more of a current, more, again, it's spot specific type thing, like I said.
so the full moon, you're gonna have extra large tides. So you're gonna have a minus 1.6 up to maybe an 11.2. Or a full moon, you may not have that 1.6, you may have a 1 foot minus tide with a 10-foot plus tide. Just a little variance between the full moon and the new moon. Remember, stripers are predators, and they are looking to make themselves invisible. So when they're out there looking for bait, new moon gives them the maximum amount of coverage. Full moon, you're out. This past weekend, I had a pretty good night. One of those nights, a lot of times on those full moons, depends on where you're setting up or where the fish are setting up, you could be casting a shadow on them and not even realize it. They're not touching anything.
Like when we were out fishing the August full moon, it was like being in this room
Yeah.
at 1 in the morning.
1 in the morning. Didn't even touch a
I
light.
didn't need a light, but no fish.
That's why if you're also out at night and it's dark with your lights, you can notice here, the end of the light here is red. I take a red Sharpie on all of mine and color it up. The white light will spook the fish on a new moon. full moon, it's already bright out, don't even use the light.
But you wanna get a couple surfcasters yelling at each other, go into the new
Yeah.
full moon argument.
Click your lights on.
Like, we love the new moon of that time we went to Block Island, she was new moon, and then
We couldn't see a thing.
we have a speaker coming to the club next month who fishes live eels and has 20 fish over 50 pounds. He loves the full moon. You know, it's a age-old, 50 years from now, they'll still be arguing. But it definitely has its advantages, like we said, with higher tides, more water moving.
Yeah,
When you get-
more
when you
current
get
is
into
gonna be
those-
there. That's not to say, guys that are fishing down the Cape, Block Island, Cuttyhunk, Long Island, their tides down there are maybe 4 feet, 4.5 on a big new moon.
We
So
talk
those
to guys from
moon
New York and
phases
New
are coming.
Jersey, we tell them we have 12-foot tides, they almost fall over, because they're used to 3-foot tides. Like, we go to Cuttyhunk a couple times a year, and they have 3-foot tides. And we
But with
have,
that said, those tides actually create huge amounts of currents on Cuttyhunk, Long Island, because Long Island's at a point, so when you have that tide coming across this way, that current on the back side of the north end of Long Island, it's going like 3-4 knots. Or same with Cutty, if we're out on the southwest point, that incoming tide is coming right at the island and it splits. So sometimes we're getting like a 3 or 4 knot current, man, we're on. Fish love it.
One of my dilemmas, I mean, I understand hedging your bets with the moon phases and the tides. Sometimes you can't get out during the optimal times.
Absolutely.
What do you look for? I mean, because the fish gotta be somewhere, even if the conditions aren't perfect.
Sometimes the conditions aren't perfect and the fish are still gonna bite. That's why, a lot of times I'm out 4 or 5 nights a week. Like I just took a few days off because I had a long weekend. But I also know that Saturday morning, that wind turned direction, shut off right then and there. So I know the next 3 days, there's no fish, so I can take my break. It's all experience.
and that goes back to too, when James mentioned about a journal. I mean, you don't have to do a detailed journal, but you can flip back and say, you can find the conditions that are gonna be like tonight from a year ago and see how you did.
But a night like tonight, the northeast wind on the island is just horrible. Just horrible. Guys in different parts of the country, in the East Coast, they love the northeast wind. Plum Island, if you don't catch it in the first 3 hours of the blow, you're not fishing. It's just crap. But that's all experience. It's all keeping that little bit of a log. Also, like if you're fishing down at Cranes Beach, there's different areas over there that will work on an incoming versus an outgoing. So you have an outgoing tide at 8 o'clock at night, low. I know I'm not going to that spot because the fish aren't going to be there. Striped bass will move up to 6 miles an hour. So they could go from one end of Plum to the top of the Plum Island in an hour. We follow the migration and all that stuff too, so it's all sitting home at night. I have my iPad in front of me, the wife's watching Dancing with the Stars stuff. I'm in like La La Land because I got my iPad on one of the fishing sites, going over some tides and phases and winds and, like I got 12 different apps on here. I pop up windy, I'm like, it's showing the southwest wind tomorrow at 8 o'clock. I gotta go. It's because I know that particular spot's gonna produce fish. I'm, for work, 1 o'clock in the morning, I'm already gone out of the house fishing. I got 4 hours of fishing in by the time I got to work and people are just getting up. I'm looking for that fish. But anybody else, Surfcasting 101, you want to get out and catch fish, just go. Just go as much as you can. Don't kill yourselves.
Yeah, you say you
so the bass doesn't see it. You really think the bass are gonna worry about the fluorocarbon versus the mono? No, they don't. I use mono because it's, for one, cheaper, because I go through a lot of it. I probably went through almost 100 liters this year already. So, it's cheap, it's strong, it does the job. I can tie it easier than fluoro. Now, if I'm going down the Cape and I'm chasing albies, that's why they use a little tiny epoxy jigs on 10-pound fluorolita. Because those fish, their eyesights, they can see everything. Striped bass don't care. They're going on the lateral lines and the vibrations of those other bait fish. That's what they're attacking. So this thing's going back and forth like this. The bass are gonna see it once they get up super close, but they've already committed to hitting that plug by the time it can see it. Because they know it's there already, through those lateral lines.
Back to do a thing though, Saturday, my wife and I fish a lot together, and we probably covered 3 miles of beach before we caught our first fish. So you can't be afraid to move.
Are there any other questions before we wrap it up? I want to thank these guys very much.